Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Artcasters. I think this is number 206. We've got a great show for you today. If you've been watching any of our channels, and if you haven't been living under a rock, you may have heard about this whole COPA thing where kids' content has kind of come under fire. So tonight we are going to talk a little bit about some content for kids, but this is an adult conversation about maybe creating some stuff for kids. We'll get into that in a minute. So just a little disclaimer there. So this isn't for kids, but we will talk about. We'll probably get into some kids' books and things like that. Something a little different, and this might be a little inside baseball. I don't know if you guys know. I know you guys know that we switch back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel. Usually we book our own guests, but in this case, Josh has booked the guest, so he's going to kind of carry the conversation. But I just want to kick it off first. You're on my channel, so I guess you probably know where to find me. You can find me at circworks.com. If you guys are comic book creators and you want some cool tools for creating comics, you can get the Comic Maker Toolkit, and that's available at my website. And that's all I have to promote. What about you, Josh?
I got distracted by this comment in the chat that I want to share just because that happened. Somebody in my beard. Thank you, some person. Yeah, so you can check out my stuff at joshuakemble.com. You can also check out my comic about faith and mental illness at quarterlystories.com, and that'll take you directly to the graphic novel that I'm wrapping up. That's the fun stuff. And now I'll kind of introduce our guest. I'm actually really excited to talk to Eric. This is Eric Fan, because we kind of were like familiar with each other. I think we bought a lot of each other's work back in like the heyday of Threadless, when we were both, I think, pretty active in the t-shirt design scene. And it's kind of a weird, we were just talking before recording, it's like this weird community at the time that I think still feels like a kinship with each other, 10, 15 years later. And a lot of people have gone on to have these really interesting careers in all sorts of areas. But Eric's one of these guys, like, I've wanted to get on the show for a long time because he's just a great kids book illustrator. So before we kind of get in the weeds, I'll talk about the books and stuff you made. But before we get into the weeds of that, you want to let everybody know where they can find your work and check out your stuff.
Yeah. So our books sell in most independent bookstores. If they don't have it, you can ask them to order it. And Amazon, of course, has our books. So yeah, those are the two main sources for our books.
Awesome.
And, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So those books, I'm just going to list some of them, and we can get into them later and stuff. But so, and by the way, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you guys started in kids' books that long ago.
No, it's been like six years.
Yeah. So in 6 years, and I'm going to kind of go through this. This is impressive. It's The Antlered Ship by Dashka Slater. If I'm butchering the names, please forgive me. Night Gardener, written by you and your brother. And illustrated by you and your brother. Really brilliant book. I think that's kind of the first book, right?
Yeah, that was our first. That was 2016 published.
Yeah, Darkest Hour by Chris Hadfield. Really beautiful illustrations in that. Ocean Meets Sky, again, written by you and your brother, illustrated by you and your brother. The Scarecrow by Beth Perry. It just came out. Really beautifully illustrated. And then on top of that, you guys do, book cover illustrations, interior illustrations all over the place, and continue to kind of maintain.
We try, yeah.
It's fix shops and make prints and kind of do your own hustle and stuff too, which is just super impressive. But also just we'll have to get into it because I'm sure you are working a lot. To get that done.
It's been a busy 5 years, but
yeah,
but gratifying.
So I kind of thought a lot of our audience are like aspiring illustrators, aspiring cartoonists, graphic designers, and then a lot of active cartoonists and graphic designers too.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people have interest in kids' books. Like my wife's a kids' book illustrator too. We've had her on. But it's a unique field, and I actually think I love talking to creators about their own pathway in. because I think there's not really one narrative for everyone. Like, there's these weird twists and turns, and then you kind of end up with opportunities.
We had a pretty circuitous path into picture books, so probably not the ideal path that someone would necessarily want to follow, because we spent a lot of our lives like not even working in jobs that were not art related. Like we both went to OCAD, which is the art college in now university in Toronto. So we took a 4-year program there, and then we kind of fell out of art for a long time, did a lot of other things. I was always sort of interested in picture books. I'd done some with my other younger brother, Devin, and we sent them out to publishers early in our, like when he was 16, I was 20 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't really know what we were doing, but it was something that we were excited by, but that didn't work out. Then I was writing screenplays with Barry, my other brother, and my younger brother, Devin. So we did that for like 10 years. And we had an agent in Hollywood for a little while, but nothing ever came of that. So it's just constant sort of feeling like you're sort of hitting your head against the wall, not getting anywhere. And so I was working jobs just to pay bills. And like you mentioned, when we were talking about Threadless earlier, that was after decades. That was my sort of wave. When I saw an article about it, that's a cool idea that anyone can just like upload art, and maybe there's a chance it's going to get printed for a t-shirt. So I did that basically on a whim, just as a part-time fun thing to do. And that really sort of, over that period of time when I was doing stuff for Threadless and then Society 6 and starting to realize that I was actually getting a little bit of income, that's when I actually started thinking maybe it's possible to do art as a career.
Yeah.
And then it was actually our literary agent who was starting a new agency, and she saw our work online. So that was our sort of entry point into doing kids' books. She asked if we had any ideas, and we happened to have thought about stories, some of them based around designs we collaborated on Threadless. Like the Night Garden was a t-shirt on Threadless initially.
Yeah.
And so we saw that image when she was asking us to develop a pitch for publishers, and we said maybe there's a story we can build from that image as a springboard. So we put together a little dummy and some text, and she sent that off to publishers, and that was our first book that got published. So
that's awesome.
That was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I saw this shirt, and I was wondering if you know how that came about, if you just based on that shirt, if you came up with an idea for a story from that design, or if there was something else to it, but now it sounds like somebody saw the shirt and wanted to design a book around that. Is that?
No, she was, when she sort of took us on as clients, she said, do you have any ideas for stories?
Okay.
And so we kind of went back into our portfolio and said, is there any ideas here that could potentially be a kid's book? And so we saw that we had collaborated on that t-shirt, and we looked at that and said, maybe that's a springboard we can use for a story. And so that's how we sort of, because I think we weren't necessarily, I mean, we'd had some writing experience with screenplays, but primarily our springboard is kind of visual stuff. So I think a lot of our stories start as kind of a standalone image, and then we kind of expand out from that.
Yeah, I can kind of see that with just a lot of your illustrations. I mean, there's just, even though a lot of single illustrations, I can look at even the one that I did for the thumbnail with the whale, with the breathing tank and stuff. And the undersea helmet. I mean, there's just a story there. So I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think like that is kind of a cool thing. Like you and your brother kind of share like these designs that don't always fall to the devices that t-shirt designs, like there's certain realms of t-shirts that work, and your guys were like on this kind of higher level where it was just like this whole world built from one image, where there wasn't necessarily like a punchline. It was just like an image that gives you a glimpse into like another world, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, which is unusual, I think, for Threadless, which that was kind of, and I kind of aspired to that. I just couldn't do it. So you sort of have to find your own niche, kind of like a lot of popular designs were these clever puns, or they had a great punchline or a great
Yeah.
joke. And our designs were often a little bit atypical from what was popular on Threadless, so I felt kind of lucky to to get anything.
Yeah, I do remember though, like really vividly because we were active on Threadless like around the same time, and I remember when you guys, it's like you were submitting designs, your brother was submitting designs, and then there were Fan Brothers designs, and there was just this one year where I felt like it was like every week you guys were just killing it, like just constantly doing really well on Threadless with that. And I remember just being like, oh man, these guys, because there was also, I think the beauty of Threadless was like this friendly competition, because there was no like, no one was not getting picked because of other people. That definitely never happened at that time. But
you were doing, like, I thought like it's kind of it's perceptual too, because I thought there were times where you were really killing it, and you were getting a lot of prints, and I didn't feel like a heavy hitter on Threadless. I felt kind of like in the middle or lower, and then there's all the stars that were like the flying mouse and Moss or Molly.
Oh yeah, Ollie was like, well, Ollie still is just like a killer.
So, like the stuff they're doing is so amazing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of in that awestruck stage of feeling fortunate to get any prints, but there was always people you were sort of aspiring to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I remember even like Tom Burns was just like a murderer with ideas and concepts, and just like, yeah. Anyhow, so that was a really to me, I think that's cool that was like kind of your entry point back into art. Like it kind of, I don't know, almost sounds like it gave you a win when you needed a win.
Definitely needed a win, yeah. And I mean, and Threadless at some point was partnered with Society 6, so that's when we started like selling prints and stuff on pod sites.
Yeah, and Society 6 is interesting too, because at the time, like people look at Society 6 now and may not really understand like the inception of it, which I still don't fully know, but I do remember it was like they kind of reached out to like a couple alumni from Threadless, and then most of the alumni eventually from Threadless, and just were like, hey, do you guys want to sell prints? Yeah. And it at the time was kind of unique, because I think at the time most of the print on demand sites were like cafe press, and they had like really crappy quality. Yeah. And this was a place that's like, no, we're going to do this on like archival paper. Like it's, like they'd be like, order a print from us, like check it out, it's really pretty, you'll want to carry through us. And so a lot of us got on board. Yeah. Also because the licensing was like you were allowed to kind of work with Society 6 in tandem. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was like, well, cool, I can earn some extra income on these things we built up, like, you know what I mean?
And you've got a pre-existing sort of backlog of stuff that you're not doing anything with. I mean, Terry joined before I did. He kind of jumped on that, and I think he's on like for a year before. I was like, I don't know. I didn't really look into it, and then he started making pretty decent money, and I was like, yeah, maybe I should get. I never caught up to him on Society 6, but I said this is probably a good idea to get on this, and he was working full time at a job too, and he eventually was earning enough just on Society 6 alone, but without doing any freelance, to quit his job. And although he quit before he was quite making enough to live on, he sort of jumped without a life preserver, but ended up sort of working out for him.
That's kind of a interesting note though, because like I feel like there's a lot of points, I don't know, Scott, if you can kind of agree with this, but it's like I feel like there's been so many points in my career where that's been kind of the way it works, where I kind of had some signals that it would work out, and you just kind of have to jump.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't advise somebody to do that, but it does give you a really great incentive if you aren't quite at that point. Yeah. Because even like my last job, when that company kind of folded, I was kind of thrown into this, and it ended up being a great thing, because now I'm full freelance, and my income was like probably cut like in half, but I can live fine on that. I mean, and not have to answer to anyone. It's for me, it's nice. So, and it's it's only, you know, it's getting better, and I love the amount of time I have to work on my own personal projects. So, you know, it just all kind of depends. So
yeah, I know. I was just talking about that with Terry like the other night. We were talking about it, and he said it was probably like a crazy decision to do that at the time when he wasn't sure if it was going to work out. But in retrospect, he's glad he did, because it's the incentive thing. You have to, or you're going to be like on the street, right? So that's a powerful motivator. Whereas my plan was to track my sales. I knew what my income was from my full-time job, and I said I don't necessarily need to match that. I'd rather like struggle, but I don't want to jump with nothing. So I said I'm going to save up enough money that I can like have a cushion for like a year where I could survive scraping by without a job, just to focus on art. And that's kind of what I did. And then, but before I could sort of implement that plan, we got the publishing deal. So then I quit my job. And then I've been managing just living off art since then. So
that's amazing. That's cool. Yeah, for me, like the Threadless thing was like an outlet, because at the time I was working for like an education company in-house as an illustrator,
right,
and I hated it at the time. So I'd go home and do like Threadless designs, because I'd be like, I can finally just design what I want to do and not like have to listen to somebody else like force me to do something I don't want to draw, you know. And then I got enough wins on Threadless where I was just like, and then from that, you know, and you guys might have had a similar thing, but it's like you build this backlog too of stuff that didn't get printed on Threadless, but
right,
because you had been printed on Threadless, and like at the time, if you got like one print on Threadless, you'd have like, you know, your search results on Google would be like 300, 400, 500,000 results for like the day, just instantly from
right,
just one win. And so then you get approached by t-shirt companies, and
no, definitely.
I started figuring out that whole thing. I think a lot of us did, which was like, oh, well, I can just sell the ones that didn't make it on Threadless to like these other companies and kind of filter it down the chain from like the highest buyer to the lowest. And I started hustling that enough to where I was like, I can just do this. So I kind of quit my job.
I'm noticing that with like the digital design products that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of success with the Comic Maker Toolkit, and now I'm constantly getting emails from other you know, marketplaces that are kind of popping up, and in some ways it's kind of scary, because I think I'm worried that it will go, because it's very reminiscent of what happened with Threadless and all the other companies that kind of popped up and everything, and there's more of them out there, but it's kind of getting saturated. So
it seems like there's a life cycle to some.
Yeah. So even though, I mean, I've got two more that I saw, and now and you know, they want to run these exclusive deals, and I get approached by these companies. Oh, can we run a deal with this? And I'm saying, I'm sorry, I got a contract right now for this period of time. And so it's already going into like, you know, the middle of next year. And then the one marketplace I had the most, and I wasn't thinking, because the one marketplace I had the most success with wanted to do a Black Friday deal, and I already had something going on. So there's a lot of that type of thing.
Yeah.
But it does seem very, you know, very similar to, you know, Threadless and all the t-shirt stuff. So that kind of makes me nervous. But my goal is to sort of, you know, kind of like you guys were, build an audience doing this, and you know, the products that I do are all based around comics, and that's kind of what I do. So so I'm just hoping to kind of hopefully bring more people to my own site and start building that without having to rely on some of the other marketplaces and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a great time in a way to be an artist. Like when we graduated OCAD, you had to physically like drag around the portfolio.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like once the internet hit and all these online sites started and social media, like you got eyeballs on whether it's good or bad art, but you have there's a potential for a lot of people to see your work. That definitely opens doors. Like I wouldn't have a career probably without that intersection of the internet and where I was at that time.
Yeah, and I think it allows less gatekeeping, which is kind of neat. So like the scenario you just described, like that's like the Catbird agency, which that's a really good agent, you know.
Yeah,
and you know, back in the day, had you tried to like submit to that agent, if you're an unheard of, like that's just never going to happen.
No, of course not. Yeah.
But because of the internet, it's like you can get popularity from your art alone, and then that can actually draw like a high profile agent to you, which is, I think that's really kind of amazing.
Yeah. I think it's kind of simpatico with my personality because I'm not a big self promoter.
Yeah.
It's not my personality, right? So when being able to have stuff out there that a lot of people see, it's a much easier entry point than going out and hard selling yourself.
Oh yeah, hard selling is. I think it's one of our biggest weaknesses as artists because we tend to like just drawing, and it'd be ideal if we could just draw.
Yeah, exactly.
We have some stuff in the chat. If I don't mind, I'm gonna got some questions. So C. Kim says, currently I'm working on my illustration degree. That's a comic book focus. I also own and operate 3 tattoo shops. As a full-time illustrator, you say too many pokers in the fire is a must. And I don't know for you guys, like me, as far as t-shirts, I kind of came in, I mean, I never kind of broke into threadless, but I think my introduction was sort of, I got into like a few T-Fury things, the shirts of the day when that stuff started going on. But, I've got t-shirt designs that are on just, I don't know, Redbubble and TeePublic societies, basically all the different, and I make a little bit of money from that. It's not a lot, but for me, I don't know, what's your guys' opinion on that? Is it good to have your designs on a bunch of different places, or would you rather have it on one in particular?
I think it's kind of a numbers game because you don't know where your stuff is going to do well.
Right.
And it adds up. Even like I have sites where I make like $10 a month.
Right.
And it sounds like nothing. And then I go to do my taxes and I add up all the sites where I'm making $10 a month, and then it's like, oh, I made more than I expected. So, and then there's sites where I make significantly more than that. But I think to me it's good. I mean, you don't necessarily want to spread yourself too thin, but I have my work on a lot of different sites. So
yeah, because I mean, and you'd never, because I do get people asking, well, what's better, like Redbubble or Society 6 or T-Fury or Designed by Humans? And it really just depends whatever catches. And it's also the same with like my digital design products. Like I have the most success on a company called Design Cuts, whereas a site like Creative Market is a bigger site.
Yeah.
But I've sold thousands of this one product on these other companies, and the biggest site there is for this, I've sold one. So it doesn't make any sense, but
that's why
you kind of have to try it out and see what works for you. So I don't know if there's any, and it could do with algorithms or whatever. I don't know what it is, but sometimes your stuff will just hit on one particular place.
That's what I found. It's hard to anticipate where you're going to gain traction. On the other hand, I think it's good to have a certain degree of focus because there's a bit of time commitment. So you want to be focusing and putting your time into sites where you are gaining traction. So you got to kind of monitor it and then, I guess, put your time into places where you feel like you're getting.
So here's a question, Eric. So for me, these different marketplaces and other sites that sell, I don't bother. I figure they're there because I'm on there because they have an audience, and hopefully their audience will find me. But I don't usually push. If I'm going to push something, I usually push it to my own site because I can make a bigger, percentage. So I don't know. I know in Googling you, I noticed that a lot of stuff is going to Society 6. So I don't know if you yourself push people to Society 6, or if that's just where people are mostly finding you, or
I don't do much self-promotion.
Okay.
In terms of, I used to sort of feel like if you're on a site like Redbubble or Society 6, the more and maybe it comes from being on Threadless and the community there, and it may not translate into sales at all. I just felt like if you were part of the community more somehow, that you'd get more followers, and somehow that would boost you a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if that's true anymore, and I don't really invest in that sort of social aspect of those sites because I don't have the time anymore. But I used to do more of that, where I'd be, whether it was Society 6 or Redbubble, I'd be more active and engaging with other artists and people that were on the site. So whether that's worth the time, it's questionable.
Yeah, it's that's another thing too. It's kind of hard to sustain something like that. And once again, if like I'm in a kind of similar boat where I have a Society 6 shop where I do prints and stuff like that, and it generates a decent amount of passive income, but it's like I don't bother to promote it too much anymore. But if I'm selling prints, I'll just link people there because I already have a decent following there, so it's like it's not hard to regenerate that because it's already kind of grown. And there were a couple other sites, and that was one of the ones that kind of worked. So yeah.
I think promotion is definitely good, like on Instagram and stuff. And the people that I see that do it well, it's a very non-aggressive, like they're showing their work and their life a little bit, and they post pictures of their artwork in a sort of a attractive way, but not a big sale like banner type. I think that turns automatically sort of switches people off as far as your work goes. So,
well, that's a good point. I like that. Okay, I want to get into kids' books because we talked about a lot of that stuff, which honestly I could go on about that too because like we were saying at the top, that was an interesting era. But since then, you've kind of started this new chapter of kids' books, and it really does seem like you guys are getting a lot of traction with it, and making some really beautiful books with publishers that actually put in the time to make them beautiful too, like with French paper and like great paper stocks and really good book design. And so
I'm really lucky with people we work with.
So the Night Gardener, like, how did that happen? How long did that take you guys? And then like, how did you kind of react to it picking up so much traction? Because that was the first kids book, so that's fairly unique.
Very surreal, and not expected. I think it got acquired in early. When would it be? I'm bad with dates. There's like a year lead time it was published in 2016, so we worked on it for about a year just because we were still a lot of hours refining the text, and for a picture book you need to submit a dummy, like a rough dummy, which that was kind of new for me because I'm not used to laying out everything that you're going to be doing in rough form, and that'll go through multiple drafts where they'll give you notes on the dummy, then you'll submit a new dummy, and finally when it gets to the point where the dummy is approved, then you start final art. So I think when we started final art, we worked on the finals for about maybe 6 months, and that's including getting like first pages and proofs, and then refining from there. But so the whole process was about a year, I would say, working on it.
And that's a bit of a gamble to do a year on a book.
Yeah, definitely. And not everyone. I mean, we tend to work slow, and plus it's our first book, so there's that noob factor where you haven't done it before, so everything takes a little bit longer. But I mean, I know illustrators that do 10 books a year, which I couldn't imagine doing because but it depends on the style and how quick they are. We've juggled like I think the most we were ever juggling was like 3 projects over the course of a year. So, but that's tough. Like,
yeah, and I think the style of illustration you guys work in too is very like involved. Where there's very loose children's books. There's a whole gamut of styles in children's books. You guys are more on the side of like very rendered, kind of exquisitely illustrated books. That takes a long time.
Yeah, and we're not the quickest. So, and we second guess a lot. We redraw stuff sometimes, so that all sort of slows down the process. Yeah,
I'm kind of curious what that process is like, working with family, and like how do you guys delegate who does what, and how does that kind of process work?
Well, I guess we've collaborated on stuff in the past. Like we did when we were on Threadless, we collaborated on some T-shirt designs. When we were kids, we would draw together a lot. So, but it's still kind of when we do the rough, we'll have a pretty good idea of the elements in the composition. So it's not a strict delegation. Someone will say, I think I can draw that, or this background, and I'll try the characters, and then we bring it together.
Are there ever arguments over, no, I get to draw that part?
I wouldn't say not passionate arguments, but yeah. But and sometimes we'll draw the same thing, and then it's like, which one's better, and go. And you got to kind of be egoless, or put your ego aside for the greater good kind of thing.
That's cool though, because I think that can. Well, I mean, that's cool. It's like you guys almost have like a critic to kind of review it before it even hits the ground, which is great, because that's a real struggle for a lot of artists, is like, how do you maintain objectivity while you're especially creating your own thing? You know, like, when you're illustrating someone else's work, it's a little easier to be objective, but when it's your own, it's like, it must be nice to have that like check and balance, you know? Like, oh, okay, that was a crazy idea, or oh, that is a good idea. Okay, I'll go with that. You know?
And that happens all the time, like when we're working stuff, or I'll do a drawing and he'll say, I think I'm going to refine it a bit, or work on it a bit, or change this element, and then if it's better, then we eventually it's just about coming to consensus, I think. And sometimes that takes a little time for you to sort of sit on it and say, yeah, it's better, I agree, or you disagree, and you try something else. So it's like a back and forth. It's kind of like being in a band where you got different musicians, but you're trying to contribute to sort of one unified sound at the end of it. So.
Yeah, I'm wondering, so a healthy band or like a I'm just because I play music.
Yeah,
musicians.
Stuff on Instagram is cool.
Yeah, but like some of the bands we've played with are like kind of not, so like they don't get along well, and we get along okay. You know, every once in a while it's like, no, like this timing's a good idea, and there's like a little bit of a standoff until we kind of go, yeah, that you're right, that is better, or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's always that dynamic with any collaboration, whether it's music or art, and
yeah,
sometimes it can go sideways and bands break up, but like it's all part of that creative process, I think. Yeah,
you guys do excellent work together. It's kind of cool. It's reminds me of like when I was growing up, I used to get those Hildebrandt calendars. This is like the Lord of the Rings.
We did.
And I would just be like, that would be so cool, because I remember reading these stories about the Hildebrandts working late at night, and one of the brothers would fall asleep and the other one would just finish the painting. And I've had that fantasy, especially when I started freelancing full time, where I'd be up till 1 a.m. and I'd be like, it'd be really cool to have somebody else take it for a second so I could nap.
That's the other great thing about our collaboration is it's that not carrying the whole weight of the book. Like sometimes one person will fall down, the other person's there to sort of pick up the slack a little bit, and it's daunting when you're faced with starting a whole new book. You got all these pages, and then knowing that there's a sort of division of the labor makes it kind of nice to.
That's awesome. And you guys use a lot of traditional materials too, right? Like charcoal and pencil and.
Yeah, we do pencils, sometimes ballpoint pen even. We've been doing some digital stuff like with Procreate and on iPad now, just to experiment with that. Which is
cool. Do you like it? Like Procreate?
Yeah, we've done some cool stuff. It's great for doing like rough dummies, and we've even like done some finish work on it. And it's definitely a learning curve if you're used to drawing on paper. But I don't want to not do something because it's not comfortable. I think sometimes you have to do something because it's uncomfortable, and that's how you sort of learn new skill sets and stuff. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I've been curious about that just because, like when the iPad Pro came out, like 80% of the NCS members were like showing up with iPad Pros, and these are like traditionalists who've been like cartooning. Right. In papers for years, and then just all of a sudden they're like, nope, I'm all about digital now. And I've been curious. Not that I'm not anti-digital. I just like, I'm interested.
But there's something beautiful about drawing on paper, and you have your beautiful ink work and stuff, and that's a tactile experience that's sort of hard to have digitally. But
Yeah.
then when I'm working traditionally, I'm like, where's the, like, I literally like reach for the back button, like where's the out on this mistake, and you get used to not having to. You get used to being able to make a mistake and just back out of it and just.
Oh yeah.
And so it's different.
Yeah.
They both
if there were a Command Z to traditional that didn't have to do with like paste, like patches and whiteout, like that would be amazing. All right, so you guys do the Night Gardener. Now you have a publisher. It sounds like your publisher kind of really believed in that book, right? Like, or did they?
The first person that really championed it was the art director, who our agent Kirsten knew, and Terry had actually worked with her before on another book. He'd done spot illustrations for a book called The Rooftoppers, and she was the art director on that, so she knew who Terry was. And so we sent her the draft of The Night Gardener. She sort of fell in love with it, and she championed it to our editor, Kristen Trimmer, and he acquired it. But yeah, she was definitely a big early champion for the book, and did a beautiful job art directing it. So
it's awesome. Yeah, because it's a beautifully printed book. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should go just buy it. Especially if you have kids. My kid loves it. It's a good book. So the book comes out. It starts actually gaining traction, getting really good reviews. You guys picked up some awards for it.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is like just bullet pointing a lot of stuff, but so what was that experience like? Like you're actually now kind of in a new industry, getting some feedback that's positive, and
yeah, no, it was amazing. But like I didn't have a reference point for like what are good sales, or like is this bad, or should we do more? Is this good? Is this really good? So I think it was like I didn't really have an idea. I knew it was getting good reviews, but I didn't know if it was like going to sell well still. I didn't really know what to expect going into that. So it was we were just kind of blown away. Like we liked the book when we made it, but we didn't know if other people were going to like it. So
yeah,
that was very gratifying. It's kind of scary. Like you're working on something for so long, and you're very isolated in a way. And then it's kind of a shock to like, people are actually going to see this. Like on a book, when you see it on a bookshelf, it's like it's out there. This thing that was your personal project for a year is now like sitting on the shelf. It's very, very trippy experience. But
yeah,
an amazing experience. But there's almost a feeling of, it's like you're kind of feeling exposed, like when you have something that is like almost like a personal project, and then suddenly it's like out there, kind of. But yeah, it was a great experience.
That's awesome. So how did that kind of lead into the next book? Because you guys went from that to, was it The Darkest Hour? That was after that? What was your second?
The Darkest Dark was, the publisher is Tundra, which is actually, they're based in Toronto. And the publisher had seen The Night Gardener from our agent at a book fair. I think it was ALA. She saw it and said, "Oh yeah," and so she sort of had us in the back of her mind. And then Chris Hadfield had done this book, and they were looking for an illustrator, and she thought of us for it, and so that's when we came on board with that, which was a really cool experience. Getting to meet Chris, and we went flying with him in a plane. He let me pilot the plane for a little while, which freaked me out. But yeah, so that was it was a very surreal 2 years, that whole, from The Night Gardener, and then considering like the 2 years prior to that, I was working in construction. Like I was delivering construction equipment full time, like, and just doing art when I got home after work every day. So it's pretty crazy transition. So
it's a cool transition, though. I mean, I think it's like, to me, that's kind of what's inspiring about it too, is like, you guys have always, like, since I've been introduced to your work, you guys have hustled and worked really hard. it's always exciting for me. Like I've had this happen with a few friends, you know,
Right.
and it's always exciting to kind of see that, like, that actually happen, where it's like, okay, you guys are actually getting recognized for stuff you've been putting out that's been good. Like
Yeah.
this entire time, it's been really good. So it's kind of neat to see that get known, which is it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah. And I mean, the other great thing about Threadless, like starting at that point, was I think I needed that trial by fire because my work was not that. Like I was submitting some pretty bad designs when I guess
Yeah,
a lot of people probably were when they started, but that sort of critical pushback was kind of a wake up call to me, and it definitely made me work harder. And at first, I just felt like giving up. Like I was like, oh my god, like everyone hates this is brutal. Like I'll never get a shirt printed. Yeah. And so that process of slowly gaining a little bit more confidence and getting better scores, it took a while, and it was definitely something that gave me that next step to in my, as far as an art career.
Yeah, I would say the same. I mean, I think prior to like Threadless, I used to kind of put borders around everything I did. I didn't know how to convey a story in one image.
Right.
Threadless, really, because it's like trial by fire at that point, because it's unique and it's not quite the same anymore. I don't know where you'd get this experience anymore, but it was this weird narrow time where you had direct interaction with your own market, and them telling you very instantaneously whether they would buy it or not. And for some reason, in that little brief window, most of the people commenting were the people buying.
That's right.
So it was a really unique kind of way to kind of get your chops developed and learn like how to really truly be objective, and which once you kind of unlocked that, it's kind of cool, because then when you had something you knew would win,
right,
it was just like the best feeling ever, because you're like, okay, the concept's good, the art's good, like the colors are good, like they're, it wouldn't look hideous on a person, like.
Yeah. Did you ever are there designs of yours where you did them and even before submitting them, you were like, yeah, this is a print?
There's a couple, like one of the stupidest ones I did.
The superhero and the supervillain ones were, and the literacy one is like a slam dunk if you have that kind of.
That one I wasn't sure about, right? Because I didn't know if there were a bunch of, like, I knew there were book geeks, but I didn't know. I literally made that for my own market, and I was like, if there's enough people like me who like B movies and books, then like it'll be a hit. But I had no idea. The one that I had that like really for me was like I just knew it. I spent 30 minutes drawing an X-ray of Kermit the Frog, like with like the bones of a hand.
Oh right.
And it didn't actually win on Threadless. It went on like Design by Humans. But I knew like the second I had it, I was like, this is gonna make this is gonna do really well.
Right.
And it did, and it was a little frustrating and sad at the time, because I was like, there's a lot of designs I like a lot more. But that one went, kind of exploded. There's a couple ones like that. But yeah, the villains one I had a good feeling about, where I was like, I think that'll work,
One of my favorites I remember was the Blonde on Blonde, with the cats and dogs.
Man, I'm I'm nerded out. That's cool. Yeah. It was weird. It's a good time. It's an interesting thing, It's like a different thing than I think the things we're delving into now. But
yeah,
but I don't know. Yeah, that was a fun time. What about you? Did you have like, I mean, it seems like two of them have become kids' books. So
yeah.
Were those the two? I mean, I'm guessing there's more than those, but
I don't think I ever had a design where I said, yeah, it's a slam dunk and it's gonna get printed. The one I felt like my first print was the Helium Menagerie, and that I'd broken my hand at work. I had the idea, but I hadn't drawn it yet. And then I broke my hand at work, so I had my hand in a cast. And so I was like, that was drawn like with my broken hand in a cast. So I drew it and I said, yeah, that's got something to it. I don't know if it's, but then I had because the stuff I'd done before that was like trash. So I said, this one's got something, got a good score. So I felt, but it was still like blew my mind when I got the call. Like that was one of the more surreal. I couldn't believe it. It was probably one of the happiest like wins I've ever gotten was that first Threadless.
Yeah, the first one's pretty awesome because you never really expect it.
Yeah.
I think mine was like I went out like just like at the time I didn't have a car, so I just like used public transit everywhere.
Right.
And I just did sketches of people, and then I combined them in a collage, and was like,
yeah.
I kept losing on Threadless, so I'm like, whatever, I'll just throw this up. And then like that was the one that got printed, and I was like, wait, oh, I actually can like get in there in that club, like because because once you start at the time, once you started engaging, you'd see people like Ollie Moss like just submitting stuff and be like, oh, dude, I want to be in that.
Did you get a select shirt like after your 4 wins? Because it was canceled out by the time I got my 4th print. So
oh no way. Okay, I got to do 3 selects.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then I kind of had filtered out of Threadless at that time, but yeah, I got to do 3 of them. I did some really weird shirts. But yeah, that was fun. That was kind of weird.
What was the selects? I remember that, but I don't remember exactly what it was, and also for our audience, just so they kind of know what the selects was.
This is getting really in the weeds, but they used to have this thing called the 12-month T Club, right? And so they had this thing that so once you had 4 wins, you got to do a select, and then they'd print a select, and the select was whatever you wanted, which was really cool.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's like, I mean, you always wanted to get there because then you could do a weird thing. Like one of my selects was that mini comic that you were holding up. Like I did like a 3 degrees, but I did every panel of it on a t-shirt. And I was like, I'm going to do a t-shirt and a zine because like nobody's literally going to want to print that other than me. So
that was a cool looking shirt though. I remember all the little panels.
Yeah, it was fun. It was like 99 panels or something. But so that was my first select, and then I'm forgetting what I did for my second. And then there was another weird thing like 12-month tees where they would take a risk on those. So occasionally you'd get a win, and it wouldn't be on the main site, but it was like for their club people.
I got one of the weird, which is cool. Yeah, they had all their weird. Yeah,
it was a weird niche community, but it was fun when it was in its yeah. So okay, so. So you do the Darkest Hour. When did you like? I want to talk about the stuff you did for other authors, but I'm more curious about the self-authored stuff.
Right.
So once you guys start getting steam and like you have all these like authors and publishers actually approaching you, you start doing book covers that are like for larger books, and I'm sure that's a pretty nice gig because it's like you don't have to do a full book. You can do the cover, and then it's a decent paycheck, and it's like on to the next. But with that, like, what do you do for like? How did you guys find the time to kind of come up with Ocean Meets Sky to develop that and stuff? Because you guys were juggling quite a few books.
They kind of when the Night Gardener did well, they had kind of bought into whatever we want not anything, but they said, we're interested in your next. They sort of wanted a first look at our next idea. So we again went sort of back and tried to think of what we could do. Terry had done an image of a whale on the clouds. We said maybe, and the title I liked for a book, Ocean Meets Sky. I said, yeah, that's got something to it. It's almost like doing a t-shirt design. You want something that sort of has that something that sort of grabs you or whatever. And it also seemed to be something that could be sort of expanded upon. But so we pitched them the idea. We didn't have a firm text. They acquired it, and then we sort of had to hammer out the story, which was a bit tough because we were into where we should have a completed dummy, and we weren't quite sure. We had to find the story a little bit and got some help from our editors, and eventually sort of got it into shape. But yeah, going forward, after that sort of experience, we said, if we submit another book, let's have it tight. Like, let's at least have the story tied down and something we're sort of confident about, because it's kind of stressful going in not knowing exactly where it's going. So
yeah, working in the reverse, I've done that with books, and that can be a headache because it works out, and then you'll hit these points where you're like, oh man, there's like 5 major holes in this story.
yeah,
I have no idea how to, like. Whereas if you plot it from the beginning, you kind of don't wind up with those conundrums you have to work your way through.
Yeah. No, I think we've gotten pretty good about it now. If we're preparing to submit a book, to have a dummy done at least, so you're sort of further along in the process, and it gives you more time to work on final art too, because you're not hammering it out during the process. After acquisition, you're sort of, you hit the ground running kind of. So
that's a fair point. So with Ocean Meets Sky though, like, so you guys did that. Were you also illustrating another book during that process?
Yeah, I think it actually overlapped with the Antler Ship. So we were working on the Antler Ship, and we were doing early development on Ocean Sky sort of in the same year. And we were doing the Eggers cover for the Lifters. So we had sort of 3 projects that we were working on simultaneously, which was a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
And we tend to be kind of not great at multitasking. Like when I find when I work on a project, I'm kind of single-minded, and I like being in that world and then if you're trying to switch gears and work on a story that's completely different, it's kind of hard to sort of reset and get back into the mind frame, I think, of one story. So
yeah.
So that's another thing, like now we sort of like working on committing to one project, finishing it, and then sort of moving on sequentially rather than overlapping and juggling stuff.
So I'm kind of curious. Is there like a rhyme or reason to whether you work on a like a creator, like a book that you guys author yourself, or you work with another author? Do you like switch back and forth? Is it just depending on if you're approached to do a book by another author, and if you're not, then you decide to concentrate on your own book, or how does that work?
It's stuff that's brought to us through our agent. She'll send us manuscripts, and sometimes one resonates and you say, yeah, this feels like it's in our wheelhouse and something we can bring something to. Sometimes it's a great text, but it's like, I don't know if we're quite the right illustrators for this. And it's also a time thing. It's because publishing has such a long lead time, you may have already committed to 2 projects, and then so you can't take on anything more until you sort of resolve that. And a lot, like, I guess our preference is for illustrating our own stories, but you don't always necessarily have a story that you have on the go. So it's if a great text a great manuscript comes along, then it's obviously something we consider.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you guys do find it more fulfilling though to kind of see your own vision, like the full thing?
I mean, they both are, just in different ways. Like sometimes the good thing about an author's text is it might be something that you couldn't have written yourself. So it takes off the stress of having to create your own story. You know the text is good at least. And so if you can just do the illustrations and do justice to the text, it's not going to be a disaster. So, and it's and there's something cool about the interplay between an author's world and their sort of vision that they created with their words, and then what you bring to it. And sometimes it's maybe different, or you're bringing something unexpected to it, and that creates a different sort of synergy. So I think they're both rewarding. I think it's probably easier, not necessarily more rewarding, but easier doing our own text because you're definitely in your wheelhouse, and you're sort of the world that you're in is stuff that you like to draw and stuff like that. So and
your vision like for it, so it's not as hard to kind of translate it the visual because you have it. So it's just more of like trying to kind of get close in some way to what you have in your head.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I think there's always that little bit of fear when you're trying to do justice to a text. Like, are they going to like the art, or is it going to be how they imagined it? And so you're sort of juggling that a little bit too.
That's fascinating. And it does sound like it's interesting. That's a different world than the freelance I worked in, which was a lot more kind of short-term turnarounds and stuff like that. I'm imagining there's a little bit of weight to that too, where it's like, if it's a year-long project, that's a heavy burden, like to kind of bear, because you got to deliver, and it's not like the lingering job that lasts a month. It's like that's a huge commitment.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah, and you're getting notes that from the editor and the art director, and some of those notes are they've sort of get feedback from the author too. So it's sort of a combined critique that you get, and then you sort of have to weigh all that. So it's harder. And you get notes with your own work too, like our own stories, but it's a bit easier to know that when you're doing your own story, that however you do it, that's your story. So it can't really be wrong in the same way. It can be wrong for an author's work. So
wow, that's interesting. Okay, so you guys, I'm glad you mentioned the lifters, because I just wanted to mention it once or twice, because you guys definitely, those who are watching it, check out that book cover, because it's brilliant. Like, just the cover you guys did, it's really cool. And one of my favorite authors. So, you guys have done. I mean, you did One Amazing Elephants cover, which is really, really kind of beautiful. The thing about jellyfish, that was a really nice cover.
Yeah. And it's cool getting to read, like they send you the book to read, so you get a sense of the world, and so you're reading it before anyone else has really read it, and that's kind of cool too. So it's always fun doing book covers.
So at what point in time was this, after the Night Gardener? Because I remember seeing this on Facebook. You guys got to do the Sendak Fellowship.
Oh yeah. That was I think it was the year after the Night Gardener published.
Okay, so explain to me what the Sendak Fellowship is, because all I saw was like all these photos where you were like, we're at like Sendak's house, and I'm like, wait, what? You're at Sendak's house? And then you're like, we're hanging out with Sendak's neighbor, and I'm like, wait, what is this? What is this fellowship? So I wanted to ask you more about it. I probably should have read and done more diligence.
It's actually a fellowship that he established when he was still alive. That was his sort of summer home that he had bought, and he wanted, like, I guess he wanted to mentor and young illustrators coming into picture books. So the criteria was that you couldn't have more than, I can't remember if there was a limit to how many books you had published, but he was definitely looking at people that were sort of just entering the field. And you would go to this farm for a month, and he would like give lessons and talks and critiques and stuff like that. And then after he passed away, the estate has carried on the foundations. It's carrying on the fellowship. So basically, we went to the farm that he owned, and so you're sort of surrounded by his art and just the atmosphere of the place. And we were working on Ocean Meets Sky at that time, so you're just there on this beautiful farm with no distractions, and you're working on art every day. And there's two other artists who were participating in the fellowship, Eliza Wheeler and an artist from Iran called Rasheen. And so we became good friends with them, and you're seeing the stuff they're working on, so it's kind of inspiring, and you're all interacting in this sort of creative, amazing place. So yeah, that was a great.
That sounds surreal, because I mean, I can guess from your work, like there's definitely a Sendak influence. So that must have been kind of cool to kind of.
He was my hero. Like he was my favorite book author when I was a kid, and Where the Wild Things Are, I probably read it 100 times when I was a kid. So yeah, that was very, very, very surreal.
Yeah, what's been interesting is like because my wife does kids books and I've as an art major and stuff, it's like you like kids books. Like kids books are like one of the remaining sexy outlets for art, right? It's like there's not a lot of outlets like that. There's comics, there's kids books, there's animation a little bit, and like there aren't you don't really have giant vinyl covers, like so there's not like that many venues. But what mystifies me and what's kind of cool is seeing it like now that I have a kid, seeing the kids books that like I loved, like that, like Where the Wild Things Are, how well they translate, like or Harold and the Purple Crayon's a perfect example too. It's like that book, it has the same effect on my kid that it had on me, and it's interesting to see that. I think the cool thing about you guys kind of dipping into that and doing so well in that field is you're getting to participate in that, and those books that you're creating might very well be the one that like a generation later are read to the kid of the kid and still are having the same effect. And that's kind of cool. That's a huge,
that's definitely the dream. But yeah, you never know what books will sort of have that longevity. But yeah, I think that's the most rewarding thing, is just seeing kids like when I was a kid reading your book, and you're having, or you hope to have that similar impact that those books had on you when you were growing up. It's kind of an amazing thing.
All right. Well, I feel bad. I want to get more into the weeds, but I do feel like we got to do like kind of an overview. At some point, we'll have to try to have you back on to like get more just in depth on just like honestly, I think just the process you guys work in would be cool.
Right. Yeah.
To talk about just pencil and digital and like fusing the two is such a kind of cool thing. And also, honestly, I'd love to pick your brain about like digital watercolor techniques, because you guys really just rock that stuff. But I do want to ask just like kind of a rough question, I don't know, mainly because there's illustrators out there who might want to get into kids books, might be in kids books, who like watch the show. And I wonder if you could go back and tell yourself some things about the kids book industry that you'd want to know, like where are you starting? What would be the warnings and what would be the encouragements that you would give to yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you can give the warnings.
Yeah, I don't know about warnings, but encouragement is that I think my perception when I was younger, it seemed like everything seems impossible when you're not in it. Like there are these gatekeepers, and you feel like I'm outside of this world and there's no way in, and there's nothing that's going to get me into this world. And that perception itself is a barrier, because you're setting up a limitation that doesn't actually exist. And when you get to know the people in publishing, you start realizing they're just people like you. They like art. They're looking for good stories. They're not there to stop you. You may be stopped. Like it's hard. Every industry is hard to get into, but they are not there to stop you. They're actually looking for good. They're looking for talent. They're looking for stories. They're looking for art always. And like for us, they were looking, like our agent was looking online for artists. And one of my publishers goes to Sheridan College, which is they have an illustration class there that's focused on kids books. And she goes to the year-end show every year, and she's a big publisher, and she'll walk around and just look. She's looking for talent. So I think I would want to dispel that perception that I had that it's this impossible barrier of entry, and just to humanize it and to realize that there are opportunities to enter that space.
That's awesome. That's and I think that's a really good point. One of the weirdest experiences I had my first year art directing was having to interview people who are applying for like in-house creative positions.
Right.
And I've been on the other side of that fence like so many times.
Yeah.
I had a similar kind of moment where I was like, it's funny because when I was on the other side, I always assumed like you're the one who's nervous and looking for the job. You rarely assume that the person like wants you to be that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Equally nervous. Like they're like, please be the right person. Right. It's interesting because you really can't know that until you're on the other side, and then it's like, oh, it's just people.
Yeah.
They're humans, you know.
Yeah.
And mainly they're just risk averse human beings, and like everyone. And so like if you can minimize that feeling of risk, like your art's really good, the risk goes down a little bit. The story's really good, the risk goes down a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
You're approachable, the risk goes down a lot. Like so yeah, that's cool. I think that's really cool advice. Do you have any kind of lessons learned along the way about like we had a question that like more of a technical question, but it was talking about, are there certain rules to kids' books beside page increments of 8 for illustrating children's books? And I think there's a ton.
Yeah, like leaving room for the text, and you know, there's stuff like that.
That's something we had to learn. And I mean, there's things like when we first submitted our dummy, I didn't even know how to create a PDF, which is really pathetic. But I didn't even know that you were supposed to submit the dummy in PDF form so they can look at it. So I just like created an enormous JPEG that had, and I sent them like this sprawling JPEG that they had to navigate, and they actually created a PDF out of it for us. But so I would say it's just to learn the sort of, so you don't embarrass yourself like we did. You will learn on the way, but there's all things like formatting, there's trim size of the books and book length, and leaving room for the text, knowing what a dummy is and how to create the right file for a dummy. So stuff like that. Most of it's probably available online.
Yeah.
We should have like looked into, but
yeah, well, I mean, there's a little bit of that though, like we were talking about at the top, where there's a certain level you can learn, and then there are points where you just kind of have to dive in. Like in that case, you guys had an opportunity. If you had been like, no, we can't really do that opportunity because we don't know enough yet, like that's the quickest way to kind of lose any potential opportunity like that, you know. So I think it's cool you guys kind of dove in. Yeah. I have a similar story. This is when I was first starting illustration. I sent out my art to a rep, and I'm now blanking out on his name, but he's giant in comics. Oh my gosh. Anyhow, huge in comics. Kind of a legend. He repped R. Crumb. And I sent a query letter, and he was like, yeah, send me samples. And so I sent him samples and proceeded to crash his computer. And he sent me an email back like saying, F you, it took me 4 days to like download this stuff, and I never want to talk to you again. It was Hansen and Associates or whatever, who was like a heavy hitter at the time. And I was like, you know, green, and my portfolio was terrible at the time anyway. But
I love I just wanted to throw it in that I love the work you're doing online, like the graphic novel that you've been posting. It's great.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, that's a whole weird thing too. It's just kind of an act of faith kind of creating, where I'm trying to focus on just making something really good.
Yeah, it's so cool that you're just like, there's that patience and love, and you can tell it's a real passion project, which is always cool to see.
Yeah, I love those things, man. And we talk about that on here all the time because Scott does passion projects too. And like one thing I found really fun about like, you know, the art world is like I'm a member of the NCS, and when you walk into those meetings, it's like there's like heavy hitters there, like people who directed Disney films, and like, you know, like Marla Fraze is a member, and she's had movies optioned, and, you know, like is a really power player, like illustrator, and really brilliant writer too. Yeah. And the only thing any of those people want to talk about is usually like, what are you working on? And like, if you're like, oh, I'm working on this thing for like this giant client. They're like, yeah, but what are you working on? Like,
Right. Yeah.
nobody wants to talk about the client work. They all want to talk about like what you're writing, what you're making, what you're creating.
Yeah. See, interesting stuff.
And to me, I think that's a really neat unifying thing is like, like to me, like, I love the children's books that you guys have done for other people. I'm still really like, I hope you guys write and illustrate more of your own, because that's the stuff I like super connect with, because it's just like that's your full vision. You know, it's cool to see. But yeah, so yeah, it's been cool having you on. Is there anything, Scott, that you kind of wanted to? I mean, there's a ton I'd like to ask, but I also realize we're getting towards 1 a.m. for you, and so
Artist hours.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my big questions I think I already asked about, like working with family and that type of thing, and how the concept came from, you know, for the Night Gardener, from the actual T-shirt design. I thought that was really interesting. But I mean, and those are things like Josh said. If you do want to come back at some point where we can expand a little more on, you know, just again, it's I think there's more you can dive into with working with family, and I think Josh had mentioned maybe even bringing another brother in. So I mean, my brother does artwork too. He doesn't really do professional artwork, but but I've never actually worked on a project with him, and I'm kind of wondering how that might go. So it's kind of curious, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back on. It was a lot of fun. And it was cool meeting you after knowing your work and so long.
I know we've like followed each other's work forever and rarely chatted. I think we might have chatted a few times on Threadless, like on the forum.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's neat to have like more one-on-one interaction. So cool. We'll keep it up. If you guys haven't checked out the Fan Brothers, let's throw up that link again. Just like check out the work. It's brilliant. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Honestly, this is a cool thing that the books have taken off to the point where you can go to Amazon and just Google the fan or just Google the Fan Brothers and find like a lot of these books, and also like really beautiful Society 6 prints too. So go check it out, support and all that fun stuff. All right, well with that, let's just do the rounds and tell everybody where to find us. So Eric, where can everybody find your work? And also, is there anything? I mean, you guys have something in the works. Can you talk about it yet, or is it like?
Yeah, I think so. We've actually, our third book that we wrote together is actually written also with our younger brother Devin, who is also an artist, but he's working full time too outside the art world. So we did a book with him. We just finished final art, and it's called The Barnabas Project, and it's publishing fall 2020. And then after that, we have another book which hasn't been announced, so I probably shouldn't talk about it. But yeah, so
I like that. I just like that title. The title's very intriguing.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
That's awesome. That's cool. That I think it's neat that is it still going to be illustrated by the Fan Brothers, because it's just three.
That was our initial thought, but then there's been a lot of back and forth with different people, so we're still sort of finalizing the credits. So it's going to be a little tricky, but we'll figure it out before.
That's fascinating. That's cool though. That's cool. You brought him in. I think the process. I think that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Wow. So that answered Keeman's question. She was asking if you had a current children's book. So
yeah.
That would be it. Okay. Well, so you're on Scott's channel, so you can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com. You can also read my comic at quarterlystories.com. And then Scott, like, it's this confusing thing. Like, this is on your channel. Like, last week's was on mine. It's hard to keep track of. How can people kind of keep track of this madness that is Artcasters?
Yeah, but you're not going to give me a chance to promote my own stuff?
Oh, yeah. And also, I
No one will find you on
want free comic assets. Where can I obtain some free comic assets?
Yeah, you can find the Comic Maker Toolkit. It's at circworks.com. Just loads of comic book templates, comic book fonts, comic book what else? Page layout, scripting stuff. What I missed something. Oh, brushes, for digital or traditional, all that kind of stuff. You can print the stuff out and work traditional or digital. All that stuff is available at circworks.com. And yeah, what Josh was alluding to was just the Artcasters show. We kind of switch back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel, usually on Thursdays, but not always. And sometimes we're going to take a break like we are next week because of the holidays and everything. But if you want to know exactly when we're going to go live and everything, the best way to do that is just to join our mailing list. Yeah, I do have a Patreon too. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, so but yeah, the best way just to be alerted to what day and everything we're going to be live and when we're going to do our next cast is join the mailing list. There's a link in the description of this video. We don't spam you or anything like that. We just usually about 30 minutes ahead of time we'll send you a little description of who's going to be on and what the video is going to be about, and a link to where you can join us. So check that out. And yeah, and I just want to thank Eric, and I want to thank all the people in the chat. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me on your channel, and thanks, Josh.
Awesome.
And yeah, so like I said, we will see you in 2 weeks. So we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.